Welcome to the Blk Doctor Collective Podcast. We as Black doctors are in a unique position. We can change our communities, healthcare, and the world. Of course, we start by changing the way we see and value ourselves. I'm your host, Dr. Shanika Horn, pediatrician and physician coach, travel extraordinaire. I am so happy to have you here and listening. So let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Blk Doctor Collective Podcast. It is a guest episode. I love these. These are my fave. So this week we have Dr. Naomi Lawrence-Reid, who's a board-certified pediatrician, yay peds, and founder of Doctoring Differently, an innovative platform that educates physicians about non-traditional career paths in medicine. You know, that's our language. We do non-traditional over here. Through transformative digital courses and a robust online community, Dr. Lawrence-Reid equips physicians with the tools to discover flexible, lucrative career options outside of full-time clinical practice. Amen. Options that are often overlooked during traditional medical training. Dr. Lawrence-Reid holds degrees from Wake Forest University and the University of Massachusetts Medical School and completed pediatrics residency at Children's Hospital of Montefiore Albert Einstein College of Medicine in Bronx, New York. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm excited because I have been following you, I think, for a little while on Instagram. Y'all know I love to talk to strangers on the ground. So I reach out to people all the time. Dr. Naomi's one is touch people. So tell the audience, I guess, your story so that they can get to know you.
Sure. So, as you said, I am a pediatrician. I did my training in the Bronx, New York, and New York City, and I envisioned a career of full-time clinical medicine like most of us do. I thought that maybe I would have a career in the pediatric ER. I ended up moving to San Diego, California right after training, so now 10 years ago in 2014. And I quickly learned what they all tell us, that it's a really hard job, and not just a hard job, it is a near impossible job to feel like you're getting everything you need as a physician. I was working nights and weekends and holidays, and my starting full-time salary as a attending pediatrician was $125,000 a year. And I had no negotiation power that I knew of. I was told in residency not to even attempt to negotiate. And I was trained by people who maybe they themselves had tried to negotiate and were rebuffed. And so we're trying to save us the heartache or embarrassment of doing it. But it really, as you can imagine, complicates our relationships with money as physicians, as women of color. So within 3 years of me starting my first attending job, I just was starting to look outside to say, okay, what's next? Do I do a fellowship? Do I get another degree? We love to get another degree. Is this where I get my MBA? Is this where I do a cardiology fellowship? Like, what? And I did not know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't stay in that full-time pediatric emergency department job.
Yeah, I love that you said that because we love another degree, another certification, something to just qualify us even more to do the things that we've already been training half of our lives to do. Yeah. Oof.
Yep. Yes, that is what we love. And if you follow me, particularly on Twitter or X, that's my favorite rant. I almost call it a scheduled rant at this point to say that, listen, another fellowship or degree will not make you happier. And we think it will. I get it. It's our currency, right? We were already sold that quote unquote American dream from infancy, that more degrees, more education, more training, that will eventually give you the life, the salary, the autonomy that you want. And so it's no surprise that we think it, and our institutions, right? Like this medical society here in the US, like they will propagate that kind of fallacy for us. And that just keeps us in debt, deeper in debt, busier. But there is in no way any guarantee that doing a fellowship will, on the other end, give you more money, especially as, of course, as a pediatrician. But honestly, it's unless you are so passionate about the field, you've got to love it. You've got to wake up thinking about glomeruli and nephrons, wake up thinking about it. Okay, then go do that fellowship. But if you are just sitting there thinking, oh, I don't want to be a generalist, I don't want to be in clinic all day, being a quote unquote just a pediatrician is not good enough. Everyone around me is doing a fellowship. I need to do one so I can keep up and be intellectually on level with my peers in that way. I understand how it happens. It almost happened to me. I understand how it happens. So I do not begrudge any physician who's thinking that or has thought that or even has pursued a fellowship. Really, for those reasons, I understand.
Yeah. I literally was crafting a post about this today about you don't need another fellowship because a dear friend of mine who I went to medical school with is primary care. I am. And she literally is talking about today's the Monday and she's having the Monday scaries. And I am like, what's going on? And she's, maybe I should have done a fellowship. And because I just am not earning enough. And I'm like, you should not want to go back to fellowship to earn more money. If it's money you're after, this is the path of most resistance. Don't go that way.
You said it.
Like, please don't go that way. I'm like, you want to then take a pay cut for what, 3 more years in order to maybe earn a little bit more? But honestly,
Right.
to me, it's you're just going to be in the exact same place because you've not changed your mindset around earning money
Correct.
or your potential or your value.
That's
And
right.
if you couldn't convince yourself of your value in this position after 14 years of training, 3 more years is not going to change that.
You nailed that exactly right. It will not change it. And that's the thing about the fellowships.
Mhm.
Sorry, hold on. We're gonna cut this because you were talking, I had something and I lost it. Oh, I know we've gone on a whole tangent about fellowships. Oh,
I
maybe I leave it or I come back to it. But oh, almost the opposite is true in that when you do a fellowship, again, particularly as a pediatrician, but in almost every specialty, you are then further linking yourself to these large academic institutions in these big cities that notoriously underpay because they can, because they recognize, of course, you want to live in New York City. Of course, you want to live in Chicago, Los Angeles, San Diego. So those are not going to be the highest paying places. And especially these academic institutions. You do a fellowship, you are now a pediatric XYZ. And let's be clear, we need specialists. But you are further
embedding
chaining
yourself.
yourself,
Yeah.
embedding yourself in a system that has unfortunately historically undervalued physician labor. So that's
Yeah.
all I'll say about fellowships. Man, we took a whole detour there.
Because it's a whole thing, right? Like it's very
Mhm.
real. So, yes. Okay. So, to veer back on path, you decided
Okay.
this was not the path you're taking. As you
Correct.
guys can tell, we are very passionate. This is not the path.
No, it was not.
What did you end up doing? What did you decide?
Sure. So I'll back up to to really the moment, that moment that taught me I cannot stay here anymore. So
Yeah.
working in a pediatric ER, we had two small desks, two small chairs, and two computers for charting, right? We know how important our charting is, right? That's how everybody gets paid, by our
Yeah.
notes. So I go into a shift one evening and I see that the armrest of the office chair was broken off and there were shards of metal shooting up. And there's a little post-it note on the computer that says, oh, administration's aware. They're working on it, fixing it, getting a new chair, something. And I said, oh, okay. So it was the only chair available, had to sit in it and holding my elbow to my rib cage the whole shift, trying to type my notes because I didn't want to be impaled. I finish my shift, I leave, and I come back my next shift, a day or two later. And instead of a new office chair that maybe runs what, $80, $90, instead, administration had wrapped a diaper around those shards of metal on the broken armrest.
Yeah.
And I stood there for a number of maybe 20 seconds or so, and I just looked. And this was coming after months of frustration, right? Underpaid, overworked, nights, weekends, holidays, coming in on my days off for 6 hours to chart because I didn't have time during a shift to do it. I looked at that chair, and in that moment, I knew and felt my worth and value to that department. And the disrespect was so loud to me. Now, it wasn't just happening to me, it was happening to all the doctors. We all experienced it. But to me, the disrespect was so loud that I submitted my letter of resignation that night.
Amen. Because at what point, like, when is enough?
That.
Not you exposing me to injury in the workplace and probably tetanus. And your resolve, your resolution to that is you're just gonna slap a diaper on it. Like literally the phrase Band-Aid solution is like,
No,
now we're
that's
gonna
it.
rename it. It's diaper solution. Because what?
So that was the moment. That was the moment. We all have those final straw moments. And I would have never thought a diaper would change the course of my physician career. But just so
Especially
you
as a
know, it could
pediatrician.
be anything, right? Especially as a pediatrician. I know it's on brand at least, but I have had so many physicians reaching out when I tell that story to say, oh, let me tell you about the broken elevator at our 10-story children's hospital or other things that are not the medicine, but again, recognizing how much money is in healthcare and medicine and where it's going and where it's not going. And yeah, we all get to those points. So that was my final straw moment. And to be clear, I did not know what to do next. This was now this is the end of 2016. We're now going to 2017. And there wasn't that much discussion really about I don't think the B word of burnout had really reached the levels of usage that we use it today. We're obviously pre-pandemic here. And I just thought there has to be something else I can do with this degree and this education that I have. I don't feel like a fellowship or a degree is my answer. That doesn't sound right. I've worked hard, sacrificed enough. I have a medical degree and a license, and I'm board certified. So we're going to figure out what this can get me. Everyone around me told me I was crazy. My boss told me I would be back in a year begging for my job back. She said I was lucky that she even let me work there. And there was nothing else for me out there. There's nothing else out there for doctors, particularly pediatricians. There's nothing else. And I said, okay, bet, got it. And I went
First
per
of
diem.
all, I think that, first of all, cringe. Not to cut you off, sorry, but I feel like especially as Black women physicians or like Black physicians, what you're not going to do is tell us what we can't do. Because the reason we got to the places where we got to is because somewhere along the line tried to tell us something we could. That's how we ended up in medicine, most of us. Most people have some story along the way where some advisor, some professor, somebody told them that they couldn't do the thing, and they were like, thank you, bet.
It's
So
true. That's exactly right.
like they just don't know how we roll. So the minute she told you what you couldn't, like they just lay down the gauntlet.
It sure did. I know. I know. It was a little bit like, oh, now I got to be petty and really show
Right,
you what I'm gonna do. I already was
right,
trying to be nice about this and give my resignation. We're having a conversation. We're having a meeting about it. I was doing the right thing, but now you're gonna have to watch me. You're
right.
gonna watch me. And again, I didn't have a great plan. I just was like, oh, I'm still leaving. There was no doubt about that. She had not intimidated me into staying by any means, but I held on to that. I just thought, oh, okay, I won't be working here. So already I feel like I'm winning. And okay. As I started to say, I did not know my options as so few of us did, thankfully, thanks to podcasts like yours and platforms like what I'm doing now. There's so much more discussion about these options, but I'll say in 2016, 17, I did not know of any. I was Googling hard and I wasn't really coming up with much, but there was another hospital in town that was per diem. I could go per diem. And I had bills and loans, and I was renting a 1-bedroom apartment in downtown San Diego. I was driving my med school Corolla. I had almost 200,000 in educational debt, and I had bills, and no one was paying them but me. So I just went right over there and picked up per diem work. And quite frankly, that started everything. I am so grateful. That is what I did. All I knew to do, but it was really the launching point to everything else.
Yeah. I feel like at this point we should just call you Naomi Knowles because the best revenge is your paper, like very Beyonce right now. Like, I just feel like that. I'm gonna go get my money.
Yeah, and to be fair, it was survival. At that point,
Yeah.
I didn't have a big plan. That's also
Right.
what I want your listeners to hear. I know that we are, as humans,
Eight
especially as
plans.
doctors who have who have sacrificed so much, our whole 20s,
Yeah.
debt, and we're trying to catch up. And so we want to see our career path stretch straight ahead in front of us. We want to be able to have the predictability and the stability
Mhm.
of knowing what's coming up next. But I could not do that. I couldn't wait
Yeah.
and figure out, okay, let me figure out my whole, recalibrate my whole retirement strategy. I was 33 or so at the time. And I just didn't have time for that. You wait to get your ducks in a row, but I just had to pick up the duck closest to me and run for it. I could not wait for a big old plan like we love to
Yeah.
have. So for me, it really was like these bills and these loan payments are coming every month. So let's just get that job and a
Mhm.
per diem job where I'm being paid hourly. I figured out how to get my own health insurance, but everything else has to be on pause. Let me just get my bearings. But even that felt so good. I felt like I had reclaimed a little bit of autonomy. I was able to pick up shifts when I wanted them. By the way, they were always available. If you are joining a per diem pool in your community, by the way, there's no limit. You are not under any non-competes. You can join multiple per diem pools. You will
Mhm.
always have work. People are always happy to see you because someone's calling out, someone's on maternity leave, someone's sick, someone has
Mhm.
to handle a family thing, someone just needs a day or a week off. So joining per diem pools, everyone's happy to see you. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it, and I was able to at least make enough money to get the bills paid. And then my next step actually was locums, and locums was a bad six-letter word when I was in training. Real doctors don't do locums. Real doctors are
Oh,
full-time at
mm,
one
good.
institution. And I'm from the Boston area. I did my residency in New York, and in my mind, locums were only in A states, and nothing against states that begin with A, but I always lived very far from them. But I assumed it was rural, backwoods, somewhere. I'd take
Yes.
three flights and a bus. That's what I thought.
Over
Because
the
yet
river woods.
again, after they told me I wasn't allowed to negotiate, they're also like, you don't do locums either. They're pushy, mean recruiters, and you'll end up far away. Anyway, started doing locums in Southern California. Great experience, pays a lot, also highly negotiable, was
Mhm.
able to set my terms. And I've been doing locums for 5 years now. And again, the pay is right. And I talked about my starting salary. I have made $2,000, $3,000 a day. I've made $4,500 a day doing locums. It's all about negotiation. But we don't feel like we can or are good at that. And yes, best revenge is your paper. I had to put the revenge part. I'm not thinking about it actively, but when
Right.
I revisit it in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I did kind of show. Okay, she's not, I don't know where she is, but I know where
Doesn't
I am,
matter.
and
Yeah.
I'm feeling great about it. So those were my first couple of steps outside of full-time clinical medicine.
First of all, can we just have a moment of appreciation for the fact that you were willing to negotiate and you
Oh,
did,
yes.
and it pays. So many people are
Mm-hmm.
afraid to like rock the boat or ruffle the feathers or seem
Mm-hmm.
ungrateful. There's so many misconceptions about negotiation that I talk about all the time, but this is like literally the best thing for you and the people around you because everybody earning more is a good thing. So I just wanted to
That's
like,
right.
that was my soapbox moment. I'm off.
No, stay on. I live on that soapbox. I could scoot over. You could join me. Listen, what you settling for less hurts the doctor coming behind you. It hurts all of us. Again, I don't blame us. I was specifically told by my assistant program director, don't try to negotiate. So I understand. I now have been out of that academic framework for long enough that I see how this all goes. I see the
Mhm.
people making billions and billions of dollars off of physician labor. So to turn around and look at us and talk about, oh, it's not in the budget. Oh, that's not possible. It's like, oh no, they're lying to our faces. The money is always there. Also, I'm driving 3 hours from San Diego to earn 5 times more. So you can't tell me that academic institution with the $1 billion endowment doesn't have access to any funds to pay doctors. No, they just know they don't have to. They know we've been groomed so well and effectively, and that we are saddled with debt, and we are non-confrontational, and we don't want to be rejected.
Mhm.
That they can offer the least, or at least tell us, no, they're not going to pay us. And in general, we don't quit in the ways that we should. We don't leave. So
Oh,
that proves their point. That we'll settle. And as a pediatrician, we're often paid less than nurses. That's just the nature of it. They're unionized. They will step to the table. They will fight for their rights, and great for them. They're often protecting patient care by fighting for fair ratios, and we don't do that.
Right.
So for all of those things you said, yes, the negotiation, man, I realize that nobody cares how much I make but me.
Nobody.
Nobody cares. And if they care, if your family cares, there's nothing they can do about it. There's only something you can do about it. And you just have to, I have never gotten a raise I didn't ask for, ever. Hold on to that.
Girl,
I have never gotten a
let's
raise I
drop
didn't
it.
ask for.
Please.
So listen, you craft that email, you talk to your boss, and if they don't, and by the way, if you're interviewing and they will not engage in negotiations, that doesn't sound like a place I'd want to work. But does
Please
it
don't
sound like
go
a place
there.
that will
Don't
listen
go
to you?
there.
And
No,
I don't
never.
think it will. So look at it that way. If they want to just pull the whole offer or walk away from you because you attempted to negotiate, they've done you a favor.
Yes, please. That is a red flag. Run. Don't walk. Make a quick exit.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes,
love
yes.
everything you said because you're literally hitting all the points of why we are in the position that we're in, which is like
Mhm.
there's parts of our personality which I think was seriously reinforced by our training. And if it wasn't a natural part of us then, it was by the time we graduated. All of
Mhm.
these internal components that we have adapted and continue to uphold that keep us
Yeah,
underpaid and overworked.
that's
My
right.
friend is PICU attending, and she just got a bill for her daughter going to physical therapy. Daughter's 9 months, 10 months, right? The bill was for 1 hour, $2,300. And I was like, what?
Mhm.
Who? Why? Like,
Mhm.
physical
Mhm.
therapy, $2,300. And the thing is not because it's not worth it, but
Mhm.
immediately we do a comparison of like how much we make an hour
Right. Oh yeah.
and no, that's not what they're paying, right?
No, that physical
So
therapist maybe is making 70, 80. Yeah.
it's so it's
Yeah,
like the amount of
that's
profit, the
right.
money exists. We need
Oh,
to
the money
and we
exists.
need to
That's right.
demand for more of it. It would not happen without us. So why is everybody else getting the cream?
That's right.
We're
Well,
getting the
our
scrapings.
our predecessors, the doctors in the 90s, definitely sold their practices and shuttled us into this
Yeah.
type of management structure. That's what it is. But again, I think it begins and ends with physician unions, and that can be another talk for another time. But
Yeah.
individually, we do have power. But imagine every doctor in a hospital across departments coming to the table as a unit
Yeah.
and demanding it. I'm so grateful for what I do now because it's very easy to think, oh, they have it better. That department has it better. Those doctors have it better. And we have this grudge and prejudice between each other. We bark our consults at each other, but we always assume someone has a better job or they just don't want to respond to the consults or they're driving the nicest cars in the lot. But really, all of us coming together because we were all created similarly at the same med schools, but coming
Yeah.
together and negotiating as a unit, oh man, that would change everything for doctors.
Everything.
Everything.
Everything. Oh my goodness. Okay. So we know exactly where you stand. We know what your positioning is. I just saw on Instagram that you walked out of your job for the next 3 months.
I
So
did. I did.
I want to, because me too, it's so funny. I always take off January. I don't like to work in January. I think it's cold and I should not have to leave my house.
Mm.
And this year I have been debating, like, oh, do I take off January? What do I want to do? And then I saw your post and I'm like, okay, the universe is telling me, it's
Oh,
showing,
I'm glad I gave you a sign. That was your sign. That
it's
yes, you
showing me
should.
the sign.
That's right.
So
Take off December too if you'd like.
right. Funny because my boyfriend's talking to me about making plans, and I was like, "Oh, what I gotta take off work," and he was like, "But you never work at this time of year. What do you mean? Let's just go do." And I'm like, "Sign number two."
There you
Okay,
go.
thank you. I message received. How did you go from okay, let me try to pick myself up from my bootstraps, get some per diem, get some locums gigs, to where you are now, which
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
like ultimate time freedom,
Right. Right.
control of your life and schedule?
So I left off with the locums I was doing because it really went from per diem. There was some overlap there, but then I really transitioned to locums, which was 1 week a month, roughly 7 to 10 days a month at a location about 3 hours from San Diego, 3 hour drive. And I would just go work for a week, make more than a month's salary in a week, like more than I would need in a month. I would make it in a week.
Mhm.
And that opened me up to again, opened up time, opened up my capacity to consider different ways of working. In this, now we're getting to 2020, 2021, I discovered that any physician of any specialty can do veteran disability exams. I had never even heard of that. As a
Mhm.
pediatrician, I assumed that had
Right,
nothing to do with me.
right.
But in fact, these kinds of exams and this kind of work is very much kind of step 3 board level. It's a very focused physical exam, a very focused interview with a veteran. It's not clinical, it's not diagnostic, it's not treatment. So I'm not
Right.
giving any medical advice. They are coming to me having filed claims with the military for
Yep.
back pain, for an ACL tear, something like that. I'm not treating it, I'm not doing anything. I'm just corroborating their story with their medical record,
Mhm.
filling out a questionnaire and doing a very focused physical exam, which usually most often is just range of motion testing. A
Yeah.
pediatrician can do that. And quite
Yep.
frankly, a lot of nurse practitioners and PAs do this work because they know about it and we
Yes.
don't. But
Yes.
it is, so just in the interest of time, I started doing that.
Yeah.
I started doing expert witness work. I discovered I'd been hearing about it. We all hear about it, but we assume it's a
For someone
criminal
else.
trial. We
Yeah.
assume we'll be on a stand and it'll be an angry law and order type situation with a lawyer and a judge yelling and trying to say you didn't really go to med school. You didn't do well in your microbiology test. We just think that's what it will be. We think it'll be malpractice. But really, I would say less than 30% of cases are actually malpractice. These are civil cases where just someone was injured and there are medical records and a legal team needs a doctor to actually explain what happened.
Yeah.
And by the way, as a pediatrician, I charge between $600 and $700 an hour to do that work. I am paid much more to sit at home and think and write about being a doctor than to actually practice clinically often. I also, around that time, discovered any physician of any specialty could get into Botox and fillers. I'm here suturing children's faces in an emergency department. Thought I couldn't inject an adult's face, and I certainly can. So got some trainings, took courses, weekend courses, or a couple of evening classes on that and started that in 2018. So as you can see now, I became somewhat intoxicated by finding new things that doctors can do, both
Yeah.
remotely, virtually, flexibly, in person, at home, clinically, non-clinically. And it just has now I am 6 or 7 years into this. I've been able to earn so much that, yeah, I can take months off from clinical work. And by the way, a lot of the other writing and expert witness work I do, it's often completely remote and virtual. I've never met an attorney in person, in fact. So I can do that from anywhere in the world. When it's
Amen.
reading, writing emails, I just taken my 3rd summer off completely. I take July and August off now. I went to the Olympics.
Yeah.
I went to a bunch of different countries, and I earned about $25,000 continuing to read and write for these cases, submit invoices, and be paid while I'm traveling in Europe. And then I came back and I returned to some clinical shifts.
Yeah.
But that's the way I work. So yes, I walked out and I will see them again in February.
Love it. Love it. Because this is the dream, right? It's not
Yeah,
that it has to look a certain way, it's that you get to decide
that's right.
and you get to carve your work schedule around your life. Like it's not this work-life balance where I try to squeeze in little bits of life around the fringes of my work schedule.
That's
Like
right.
we are not interested in that kind of lifestyle. I
No,
personally am not. I'm trying to be a lady of leisure. I love this.
I
So of course, the next question is like, how did you do this? How did you find all these things? What
had
was
it.
your, because that's what everyone wants to know,
Of
right?
course, of course. Listen, I had access to the same internet everyone else does. Same access, right? What it is, there's a few things here. I think mindset is, of course, huge. And yes, I will give you tangible tips, but you, listener, physician listener out there, you have to recognize that there are no rules. If you
No
start,
rules.
if you
You say
start, if
that.
you are holding on to the rules to say, no, but I have to work this way. I have to do it this way. No, because that way that you've been taught is how we all are so burned out and leaving medicine and going other ways. There really is no winning. It's a hamster wheel. It's not a race. So you will be running and going in circles, trying to reach whatever metric of happiness your full-time academic or clinical employer has put in front of you. So if
Yeah.
you truly are unhappy and looking for other things, you probably won't get permission from your boss. We like permission. I told you what my medical director told me when I tried to leave, but to recognize that you have permission. You don't need it. You really don't need it, but I find that doctors actually do need it. It's strange. Hey, listen, we got permission to go to medical school. Someone let us in. We got permission to do residency. We're big permission people. We want the certificate and that. We want the release, the
Yeah.
certificate, the thing that lets us go and tells us we have permission to do other things. You don't need it. You just have to go when the time is right. How I did it, I told you, number one, you cannot, I don't say you can't, it is very difficult to stay full-time clinical as you're starting new things. I think step one needs to be, how do I go down on the clinical time that I have?
Amen.
How can I go per diem? If I go to my boss and say, hey, can I go part-time? And they say no, maybe we submit our resignation and find a part-time job somewhere else, part-time clinical job or a
Mhm.
per diem job somewhere else. So that's first of all, it's just very difficult. They make it that way. How you're doing notes, you're going to shifts on overnights and weekends and you're on call. How could you possibly have the ability and capacity to grow and start something else?
Yeah.
So those are just a few of the major parts. I tell every doctor, please get on LinkedIn, get a photo shoot, get a headshot taken, get on LinkedIn. I have found so many opportunities for doctors for work. I've made a lot of money from connections and contacts I've made on LinkedIn. So you just have to really start just getting used to being seen in that way. And by the way, your employer doesn't need to know. You can go on LinkedIn and put everywhere you're working right now. It doesn't have to be like, oh, if I'm leaving, why would I put my current employer? No, put it all there. Be honest about your work history. But just those are just some of the starting steps to getting to a place. Oh, and by the way, I know that we are fighting these non-competes out here. Get your contract reviewed by a physician contract attorney to see if you can start any ventures while you are still working at your current employer, because you may be able to get some sort of part-time or something else going on while you're still employed. Um,
Yes. Please read your
those are
contracts,
the things.
folks.
Read your
Please.
contracts, but also they are in legalese
Yeah,
sometimes,
they
and
absolutely
so you may
have
just
them.
need to hire an attorney to write it for you. So how I started, those are all just tips on starting. And again, if I can do it, a pediatrician with 200 in debt and no other sources of income, if I can do it, you can do it too.
Yes, absolutely. I think, like you said, you had access to the same internet, but you were able to do something that not a lot of people seem to be able to do, which is almost talk yourself into it, if that makes sense, right? Because the hiccup is not usually other people. Because
Mm.
we are in a place where, like I said, we got here despite someone saying that, oh, maybe you weren't good enough, or this is going to be too hard, or like there was messages around medicine
Oh
that
yeah.
convey
Mhm.
that it's not going to be the thing for everybody. Not everybody gets in. It's so competitive. And
Uh,
we did not talk ourselves out of that. So it's very much the root of what do you believe about yourself?
mhm.
That is what carries you outside of these restrictions. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like people need to tap into that. Who were you when you started the medical journey that you didn't let anybody talk you out of it, but you're letting people talk you into staying in these terrible work environments, things that you're dying to get out of, that are
It's
like
true.
literally impacting your health and your wealth
Mhm.
and your family, but you've told yourself, pay attention to the things that you're telling yourself. I think when you said
That's right.
mindset, that's what I thought of. There are so many things that you're telling yourself. You're the number one reason why you're in a particular place. And I think that's something people struggle with. So I like that you mentioned that because it's so much deeper than just knowing the steps. It's convincing yourself.
That gave all the convincing I needed. So listen, again, when you have that moment, you just got to listen to it. I can't understate it. I cannot understate the diaper. So
Yes.
yes, you're right. You're right.
But you had to believe, like, I
I
am
had to
worth more
believe
than this
I
diaper.
deserved more. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. That's exactly right. And I will give it to my mother, my upbringing of just, no, I deserve respect, like
Hmm.
basic respect. And in relationships and friendships, in workplaces, right? And to recognize, like, no, I am not just a cog in the wheel. I am
Right.
a human.
Right.
I'm a doctor. I have worked so hard. I'm actually important and I deserve more and I deserve better. And at that time, like I said, I was in my early 30s and I just thought, you know what? I'm a doctor. I'm going to go try something else. And if it doesn't work out, I will always have a job. We have the scarcity mentality that if I leave this job, I can. Now, we are told that. Again, I always go back to our grooming, and that takes
Yeah.
some of the responsibility off of us, some of it.
Yeah.
And I will give that to us. We are told you walk away from clinical medicine, you'll never be able to come back. You walk away from academics, you'll never be able to come back. How could that be true? We can do things people cannot do. We know things people do not know.
Mhm.
We will always have a job. So please hold on to that. You'll be made to feel like if you step away, if you take a break, if you walk away, you'll never be able to come back. And you're walking off into the abyss off a cliff. And that is not true. That is
Right.
not true. So I'll say that clinical medicine, it'll always be there. Please do all the contract things. Walk in with your head held high, your shoulders back, and recognize you are the prize. Okay. We're made to feel like we're just grateful and lucky to be at the table and to be there. And they have capitalized and maximized that. And I get it for most of us too. We are maybe first generation or immigrants ourselves. And so we are living the American dreams. Our families are so proud of us. Our communities are so proud of us. Yet we go to these jobs and we are dying inside and we don't feel like we can complain. We don't feel like we can do something else or admit to our aunties and our parents that I do not love this because they're bragging about us all day, all night. And we just don't feel like we can actually admit that this is not working out. This is not what I thought it would be. Again, my mother was very supportive and just, you're a doctor, like you can do other things, fine, try something else. No one can take this away from you.
Right.
So I think that we need more of that energy and more of that mentality that no one can take your degree, your education, your board certification, your medical license away from you in that way. You will
Yeah.
have it forever and you can use it in different ways. And there's no permanence here. Try something new. If you don't like it, try something else. But something tells me you'll end up eventually at a beautiful place with the career you want, with the income you want, with the autonomy and the salary you want, if you can just take that first step.
Yeah. You said so many good points. Y'all need to replay this episode at least. Like, if you feel like you're dragging a little bit and you need to and you need a reminder, this is the episode, okay? Because we've touched on all of the things. The
Mm-hmm.
possibilities are literally endless.
They really
So,
are.
speaking of possibilities, you have a course and
I
you talk
do.
about basically the possibilities and how to access them.
I do. In 2020, I was 3 years or so into my career and journey, and I did not know what this would look like for me as the pandemic started. But by the end of 2020, I was doing great. And surprisingly to me, it seemed like this career path was even pandemic proof. I was still getting my locum shifts. I was still able to do non-clinical work. I work remotely if I wanted to. And so I'm trying to tell my classmates and colleagues, like, hey guys, hey, there are things out here. And they're not really looking, they're just like, what are you talking about? No, it's not. No, there can't be anything else. But they are also learning that these institutions don't really care about us. I think that was an important learning part in the pandemic. Even if
Mhm.
you wanted to believe that you were really valued and taken care of by your institution, you hadn't encountered a diaper by the time the pandemic came along, you probably understood it for real.
Yep.
So I sat back and I thought, listen, as I said earlier, education really is our currency. And I thought, okay, maybe rather than just ranting and leaving voice memos about all the things I'm doing on my friends' phones, maybe I actually put together an organized curriculum and a course about everything I've learned, top to bottom, how to do it. And that's what I did in 2021. And I founded Doctoring Differently. And I created at that time a 6-week live in-person course on Zoom for doctors around the country of all specialties. Initially thinking, okay, if this worked for me, a pediatrician, everything I do, every doctor can do. Every doctor can go per diem, regardless of specialty. Every doctor can do locums, regardless of specialty.
Yeah.
Um, and so I taught it live for a few years. And then in 2023, I recorded it. So right now we have Doctoring Differently Academy. It is a nearly 9-hour digital course but we have live Q&As every month where you can talk to me, access me, answer questions, ask questions about your personal situation, how you want to navigate and negotiate it. But truly everything you need is in this course, how to find and start over 25 different physician career opportunities, how to get your own malpractice, how to get your own retirement funds, and how to get your own health benefits, all those other things that keep good doctors in bad jobs. So Doctoring Differently Academy, that's where we are now. And I am so excited. And I love teaching doctors about all that is possible for all of us.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I feel like I need to write an email about that. What's keeping good doctors in bad jobs?
That's right. A
I'm
lot.
excited for that. But
Yeah.
this is so good because there, it really comes down to the root of it is that we are keeping ourselves in a lot of these places and not in a, oh, it's your fault kind of way, but in a, we've just been groomed that way and we've
We have.
been played and some of our better personality traits have been used against us.
Absolutely.
The fact that we love to be in service to others and our
That's right.
commitment to people and our love of service. So I think, like you said, there are no rules. We need to figure out what's the best way to do things for ourselves. We've definitely earned the right to earn more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys, this economy right
Yeah.
here.
That's right. That's right.
Not
And
it.
listen, I'm vocal about that. I love that you said our best qualities are used against us. I often say that as well. That empathy, the loyalty, even our ego and our pride, those we
Yeah.
need a little bit of that, but all of those things, that feeling of giving,
Yes.
all of that, those hospitals and this industry will use that and just say, "Oh, you're asking for money, more money. I thought you cared about these kids.
Yeah.
I thought you were a pediatrician. Oh, I've been said that has been said. I thought you were here for the
Someone
patients."
told me that. Oh,
That's
it's more
right.
about the mission than the money. I said,
Oh,
homie, it's about the mission and the money. I'm a good
yes.
multitasker. I can focus on both. So let's
Yes, we
keep the
can.
topic at hand. Try to play
Yes,
me.
let's. That's right. Hey,
Like
thank you.
offended.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not
Right.
working, fortunately, on this generation, on
Right.
us. Amen
Right.
to that. But again, we have a very high tolerance for suffering. That's what residency and med school does, right? We are used to working nearly to
Yeah.
death. I'm going to say it.
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
but being paid the absolute least.
Right.
So we're already tolerant of it. We can do it. And so they were like, wait, they can already do it as residents. It doesn't need to
We
be
could do
that much better as an attending.
right.
They already are used to it.
Right.
Another industry, they'd say, excuse me, who do you think you're talking to? But
Yeah.
again, this is the long game. When you just
Right.
take a step back and look at this long game, it makes sense in that way. But you
Yeah.
nailed
Oh,
it.
amazing. Okay, so where can the people find you? All of your
Sure. So, all right. You can find me at www.doctoringdifferently, exactly the words, doctoringdifferently.com. I'm most active on Twitter for the time being, and you can find me at Doc Differently. And of course, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all the other places. Just put in Doctoring Differently and you'll find me everywhere. And I'm just excited to talk to doctors who are doing new things, who want to do new things. We have open enrollment right now with the Doctoring Differently Academy. So no matter where you are in your career, if you are finishing residency, I will say you don't need to be taking this course or really talking to me at this point if you're an intern or somewhere in residency. You need to do the residency that you love in the field that you are passionate about. And then even near the end of residency, I'm happy to teach you and bring you in and teach you all the things that your degree and your training can get you. Please only do a fellowship if you love the field. You do not have to jump into fellowship because you just
are
don't know how to
worried.
find a job. I've heard doctors say that they don't know how to find a job, so they did a fellowship. And that seems like a bad reason to do a fellowship. I would just urge you that. But again, if you are in mid-career, end of your career, looking for retirement type of jobs, way to stay active as a physician, quite frankly, this is information that all physicians should have. So I also have a podcast, so check out the
Yes.
Doctoring Differently podcast, please. We also have new episodes on Tuesdays, and I interview doctors who are doing different things. Some have come through the Doctoring Differently Academy and have launched their careers in other directions. Some are just incredible guests that I've found in this world who are doctors who, again, didn't believe the lies, were
Yeah.
disparaged and discouraged from doing new things, but chose a better and different path. And we all can. So thank you for having me.
Oh my God, I loved this conversation so much. Definitely, let's keep in touch because I might have to have that because the people need to hear this message a couple times, I think.
Yeah,
I can say it. I think they can hear it from so many different voices. And then they can also just see, like I said, the possibilities. Like so many options exist. You don't have to do any one set way. You don't have to listen to any one set person. You get to choose, you get to decide. Like the world is truly abundant, right? And if you
that's right.
operate and start to adapt that mentality, like there's so much in this world, it will never run out, that you can literally start to explore this and really just open up your mind to just a better life, basically.
Absolutely. Oh, basically,
Yeah.
literally a better
Yeah.
life. I am just so grateful. Thank you for having me. There's such a good life available for all doctors. You're not stuck. You think you're stuck. You think there's no way out. You think this is your fate. This is your destiny. It's not. If you're not happy where you are, you can make a change.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So all of Dr. Naomi's info will be in the show notes. So the links to her social media, to her website, all of these things, look it up because there's no reason if after hearing this that you feel stuck that you haven't looked up some options because the internet's available to everybody, but not just that. Now we have a specific answer to
It's
the
true.
problem.
It's true.
So
I'm excited. I wanted to be the resource I wished I had. Back in
yeah.
2016, 2017, I didn't have it. I didn't have any mentors. I didn't know anyone, particularly any pediatricians
Mhm.
working in any different way. So I set out to be the example and the resource I wished I had. So use
Yeah.
me.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Okay. Thank you so much
Okay.
for
You're
coming.
so welcome.
I'm so excited for your next 3 months of off time. And yes, I'll be following on social, watching to see what comes up next.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Okay, folks. So please check out all the resources, like I said, tagged in the show notes. I want to know what you guys are interested in pursuing. Like, what are some of the options that we talked about today or that you found that you're interested in pursuing? Like, share with us. I'd love to hear feedback from the audience. And until then, have a good week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast. And what I want you to do next is link us everywhere you can. Instagram at The Blk Doctor. Just become part of our collective. I want you here. Thanks. Until next time. Bye.